What's going on, UCF Night Nation? Welcome to UCF Uncut. We are going to preview UCF versus Cincinnati upcoming football game, and we're going to give a preview, a prediction, and why I think this is a trap game for Cincy. And I also have a high upset alert. I think UCF can pull the upset in Cincinnati coming up here. Today, we are not going to have a brew of the night. I actually had ACL and MCL surgery, so I'm hanging in there right now. It's probably the most pain I've felt since watching Gus Malzahn coach UCF. So you could probably feel that. But yeah, quick thoughts. Let's look at UCF versus Kansas. Man, that game, we were a couple calls away from winning that game. We had that game the entire game. We outplayed Kansas, and we gave it away, and it was a very frustrating game to watch. It was a killer, but at the end of the day, we fought that game. We did hang in there, and we had a lot of injuries. Once again, quarterback goes down, and we just can't seem to get a break when it comes to that. But overall, we had them early. We let them come back. Penalties are killing us, and missed tackles are killing us. Also, injured players. Taven Jackson, he didn't look 100% when he was playing. And when he got hit, he automatically dropped the ball like a loaf of bread on our goal line. And, didn't matter. They recovered it. They could have recovered it and scored because inevitably they're on the 1 yard line and they punch it in the next play. And that's a huge swing of points. And that was probably the biggest reason we lost was that one play. Flip the game and then put us down 7. So that was huge. There was another player, Dylan Wade, one of my favorite pickups in the transfer portal. He obviously is hurt. There was a slant over the middle. He knew he was going to get hit, and he just pulled up, and he didn't even try to catch the ball. Those little plays, like I think it was second down. It was maybe second and 7, and it would have been probably a first down if he caught the ball on our own side of on our side of the field, trying to get out of our side of the field and move the ball. And, he let up and he didn't even try to catch the ball. It was a bad look. So hopefully if they're not ready to play, then don't play. But they're costing the team by playing the way they played. So I'm not a big fan of those two, especially how, really the Taven Jackson injury cost us the game. So not a fan of that. But overall, we could have easily have won that game. I think Cam Fancher could be a good surprise. It's like Groundhog Day. If he is the starter, we might be in decent shape against Cincy because I think he can move the ball because I don't know. It's just like the UCF coaches believed in him and had him listed as the starter. So in camp, he was making those throws. And so I think maybe we kind of gave up on him quickly. And I was one of those people. But at this point, we're kind of in a very unique spot as a fan base and a team. As always, UCF fans melt down. Anytime UCF's losing, it's like the end of the world on Twitter. It's quite comical. It's usually the same cast of characters that do that, but it's just interesting. Also, our student body, probably the softest student fan base that we've ever had right now. And I'm not shocked with today's generation. No offense to anyone listening if you are from today's generation. There are some diehards who do go to the games, stick it out for 4 quarters, and pack the stadium. But having a night game on a Saturday, this big of a game for this UCF team, if you don't stay till the end, maybe you thought we were blowing them out early. They came back by halftime, so there's no really excuse to leave. Now, I get if it rains, and I get that, but at the end of the day, there's zero chance that, when I went to the UCF, that the student section would have bailed and continuously bailed like they have been. And I doubt that they've been tailgating and partying as hard as we did back then, and we still stick it out. Now, I get leaving occasionally, but this is a big game. They should have stayed. I'll digress. Okay, why do I think this is a trap game for Cincy? This is a trap game for Cincy for a lot of reasons, and I think a lot of people might be overlooking the fact that Cincy is coming off a huge emotional win at home. They upset Iowa State, and now they're 4-1 and have 3 straight wins. Okay, so they're on a 3-game win streak. They just beat Iowa State at home, and here comes a UCF team that is lost 2 in a row. They lost to Kansas State and Kansas, and once again, social media and media in general have put UCF back into the cellar of the Big 12 as far as what they think the team could do the rest of the year. I'm not one of those people. I originally said we would be going into this game. We would be 4-1. I thought we would beat Kansas at home. If a couple things went the other way, if we didn't get stopped on the goal line, which is ridiculous, I still believe he got in. And if Taven Jackson didn't fumble the ball on our goal line and give up 7, we would have won that game. And we would easily be, talking about instead of being 3-2, we would be 4-1. So I was wrong on Kansas, but I had us going on the road and beating Cincy in my original prediction. And I still have us going on the road and beating Cincy. And I'm probably one of the only people who think that. But hear me out. So it's a trap game for Cincy because they're coming off this huge emotional win. Now all of a sudden people think Cincinnati has a chance to be in the Big 12 championship all of a sudden. And that wasn't the case earlier in the year. And if you now if you're a Cincy fan or a Cincy player and you're looking at the schedule, now, they're 4-1. They got UCF coming to town. And Oklahoma State, terrible. Baylor hasn't been that good. And Utah. Now, Utah is the game that they probably got their eyes on. They're like, okay, we got Utah coming up down the road, but really until then, it's a cupcake schedule. We're gonna smoke UCF. We got this. We're 4-1. We're gonna be in the Big 12 championship. Look what we just did to Iowa State. We're feeling good. So when you go into a week preparing for an opponent coming off an emotional home win, like a shootout, they won, but they won in a very tight game with Iowa State. That not only took a toll on them physically and mentally, but when you're preparing and you're heading into kind of like an easier schedule, you might take a rep off. You might not prepare as hard as you would when you're hungry, when you have a chip on your shoulder. And it's kind of a great low spot for UCF where we just lost 2 games which we could have won. Very frustrating. People are doubting this team again, and I think that when you go on the road in a hostile environment, some teams have an ability to use that as a motivating factor to show the world, okay, we're a brotherhood of a team right here. We're traveling. It's just us. These brothers, we got each other's back. It's us. It's us against everybody in this stadium, basically. And when you have that kind of mentality and you're coming into this game off 2 losses, fiery, hungry, with nothing to lose, that's the most dangerous thing in the world, is someone who has nothing to lose and is hungry and has a chip on their shoulder. And that's this UCF team right now. Whereas Cincy is coming in thinking they're going to steamroll UCF. And the thing is also is this is a rivalry game. Call it what you want, but it's a rivalry game. Cincy and UCF has been a very contentious relationship, even going back to the American. But it's interesting. So, going off of that, right? Scott Frost can pull off an upset on the road. And let's take a little bit look at who this team is and what we're working with here. Now, there's no doubt about it. Cincinnati has had success this year so far. They're a very well-balanced team, and nationally, they're ranked 33rd in passing yards with 273 a game. They're ranked 29th, and this is in the nation, by the way, out of 131 D1 teams, 131 or 132. They're ranked 33rd in passing yards, 29th in rushing yards with over 205 a game. So let's just slow that down for a second. So they're passing for 273 a game and running for 205 a game. they're averaging 478 yards a game. That's a lot of offense. Whew, that's a ton of offense. Scary. And in the nation, they're 22nd in points a game. They're putting up 39.2 points a game, almost 40 points a game. Very interesting. And that's why they're 4-1. I mean, geez, they're putting up a ton of points. Now, their defense, not as good, but still good, but not as good. Their defense is 47th, and they're allowing 20.8 points a game. So, pretty interesting. This team is pretty much well-balanced, and they're led by their quarterback, Brennan Sorsby. He's a dual-threat guy, and I'm not going to lie, he has very impressive stats. He has experience. And this year, when I say dual threat, this is the dual threat quarterback I'm talking about, one that actually shows it in the stats, and you could see it with his stats this year. He has fantastic numbers passing. He's thrown for 1,257 yards for 12 touchdowns and 1 pick. He has an 87 QBR, so pretty good. He also runs the ball. He's rushed for over 40 yards a game in every game. He scored rushing TDs in all but one game, and he has 265 rushing yards and 5 TDs on the ground this year. So he's thrown 12 TDs in the air, and he has 5 on the ground. He made up 17 touchdowns so far in 5 games. So he's balling. But, as always, what I like to do with any opponent, the thing I like to look at is, okay, who have they played this year? When they did lose, how did they lose? What did the opponent do to stop them or contain them? And in this case, with this type of offense, all you can do is hope to contain them. You're not going to stop them. You're not going to shut them out. They're going to put up points. It's just, can you slow them down? Can you hold them to field goals? Can you score more than they can? Can you play that little tactical game of chess that you need to do sometimes to win these type of games? And the Big 12 is so strong when it comes to parity. Every team in this league could win on any Saturday. It just depends on the game and the motivations and all these other factors and injuries. But in this case, I took a look at their loss against Nebraska. It's the only game they lost, and it was week 1 against Dylan Rilola. He was like a 5-star QB commit to Nebraska, and he's got some experience, so he's a heck of a quarterback himself. But the thing is that when Sorsby can't throw, he runs. And Nebraska made Sorsby one-dimensional. They locked him down when it came to throwing. And what they did was basically they made him ineffective. He had 13 completions for 25 attempts for only 69 yards with no touchdowns and a pick. So he barely he threw for 69 yards on Nebraska. So he was not able to air it out against this Nebraska secondary. And it's interesting because when you think about it, Nebraska kind of gave us the framework for a way to beat them. And what that means is we're going to have to slow down their pass game and make Sorsby one-dimensional. Now, to follow up on that, that means he's going to be running the ball a lot. And against Nebraska, he rushed for 96 yards and had 2 TDs on the ground. So like I said, you can only hope to contain him. He's going to score either way, throwing or passing. Passing or rushing. I think our run defense is better, and our defense overall is better than Nebraska's. And we have one of the best defenses in the Big 12. I believe we're right up there. I'm gonna go over it in a little bit here, our exact rankings. But so we kind of need to replicate what Nebraska did. Nebraska beat them 20-17 week 1, and I think that's going to be interesting. And I think we could definitely try to replicate that. We'll get into that a little bit more. So looking at, Cincinnati quickly, their kicker, he's pretty good. He's pretty consistent. He can knock down kicks from far out. So lovely. It's like, seems like every week now we're playing a team that can have a kicker drop, a 48-yarder with ease. Whereas at UCF, it seems like we're like praying our kicker can make a 30-yard kick sometimes. But no Rulas has been doing well. So interesting to see. Now, what we need to do is this Cincinnati team, if we can create pressure on Sorsby and force him to run the ball and win the time of possession, that's another thing. If we could win the time of possession and kind of grind the clock out, slow the game down, because we're going to be on the road, I think we could find success. And Nebraska did that. They won the time of possession in that game 39-20. Talk about slowing the game down. Nebraska won the time of possession 39-20 against Cincinnati when they won. So, once again, keys to success for UCF. We need to slow the game down. We don't need to run fast, UCF fast right now. That's not going to be beneficial to this opponent. So, and I think Frost knows that. So don't be surprised when we get up to the huddle and they're making a lot of checks and a lot of audibles and running clock. Because our best bet with this team is not to get in an offensive shootout or a track meet. We need to slow it down, run clock, keep it tight, and that's how we can pull off an upset. And there's other things that we need to do, and we're going to get into that. So let's see here. Yeah, in Nebraska, they forced 2 turnovers, and they rushed for 110 yards, but they threw for 243 yards in that win. So they had time of possession, right? 39-20, they were winning that time of possession. And they forced 2 turnovers. That's huge. Turnovers are going to be huge in a game. That's if you're basically time of possession, if you get a turnover, you're going to most likely win the time of possession. Every turnover you get, you're getting more time of possession, and your opponent's losing time of possession. And I think by Nebraska being able to create 2 turnovers against Cincy, they couldn't really find too much success rushing the ball. They ran for 110 yards, but they threw for 243. So it just shows when you slow the game down, you only need 340, 350 yards of offense, total offense, to win the game. Pretty vanilla. They threw it even more than they ran it, and they still killed them in time of possession, and they won the game by a field goal. I'd like to see UCF run the ball more, and, unfortunately, depending on who our starting quarterback is, I don't know if we have a quarterback that can move the ball like, Dylan Raiola has for Nebraska to put up 243 yards through the air, but I would like to think that we could at least move the ball and have some explosive plays after we find success on the ground. But it's like hot and cold with our running game. You just never know. Is Isaiah Nixon going to show up this week, or is Miles Montgomery going to have another big first half and then be silent the second half? It's very strange how that played out. So then I flipped to the most recent game against Iowa State that they won. They won that game at home. That was a big one. They were ranked. Iowa State was ranked. And one thing that stands out to me that I think is great for UCF, Cincinnati is a very, very undisciplined, high penalty team. I don't think I've seen penalties like this before. I looked at how many penalties they had against Iowa State, and they still won. They had 13 penalties for 128 yards. I mean, that's absurd. And they still won. They turned the ball over one time, and they lost time of possession 34-25. It's unreal that they won this game, because when you have 128 yards in penalties and you turn the ball over, those two things paired together, plus losing time of possession in a lopsided 34-25, you must execute basically on every time you get the ball and score. If you don't, you're pretty much going to lose based on those numbers just alone. But they were able to do that. And it's pretty fascinating. And they do spread the ball around on offense a lot to multiple receivers, and they're consistently throwing for 200 yards a game and rushing for 200 yards a game during their 4-game win streak. So they're 200 and 200. They're getting 200 on the ground, and they're getting 200 through the air. It's vanilla, but it's working. So we're going to have to slow them down quite a bit. And the only way to do that, we're going to have to get turnovers, and we're going to have to slow this game down because they're humming on offense right now. But, when you hear all this, you're like, okay, all signs are pointing to UCF basically getting beat by multiple scores in this game. And you might be right. But I think here's the keys to victory for UCF and how they're going to pull off the upset. And I do believe UCF is going to upset Cincinnati on the road. And this is why. We're going to slow the game down. We're going to win the time of possession. We ourselves are going to clean up the penalties that we've been basically getting every game. Whereas Cincy is out of control with penalties. That's going to be the difference. If we can flip the penalties, and if they have any penalties like they did last week, over 100 yards in penalties, that's going to cost them in this game. Also, this Cincy team, they are struggling when you pass on them over 200 yards. If you can pass on them for over 200 yards, you're going to find a lot of success, and you're going to be very close. If not, you'll win the game outright when they allow 200 through the air. So we need to figure out a way to, if it's Fancher or Jackson, I don't know. I just can't get a read on if it's going to be Fancher or Jackson. But whoever it is, we need to move the ball through the air to have a chance, but we also need to run the ball and have success running the ball. So I think we can create some explosive plays. If we can find success on the ground, which I'm not sure we can as much as I wish we could, I just don't know if they're seeming to be a really good run-stopping defense. But we need to run for over 150 yards on this team to pull the upset, because that's going to bleed the clock. So we got to find success on the ground, and then that in turn will open up the pass. And we got to create turnovers. Can Coach Grinch crack the Sorsby code and get him to commit a mistake? And that's the true question. And, at the end of the day, I think that he can, and he will. He will craft something here. Again, we have nothing to lose. We have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. So UCF's defense is going to be the key. And I remember, I mentioned that, UCF's defense is something that I wanted to mention as far as showing what our statistics are. We're the 5th best defense in the Big 12 right now, roughly 5th best, going against the 2nd best offense in the Big 12, 5th versus 2nd. So something's got to give. But maybe if we bend and don't break, maybe that will be the key, is bending and not breaking in this case, and keeping the game closer, slowing the game down. And now QB play. Whoever starts, we need to have success in the air. My gut is telling me this is a trap game and UCF's going to have success, and the magical Cincinnati run that they've had so far is going to come down to earth, crashing back down to earth. I think Sorsby's going to commit at least one turnover here. UCF can't settle for field goals. We have to get in the end zone and score. We just have to. And that's something that they've really, really struggled doing is actually punching that ball in when we're in the red zone. And it's quite frustrating. We saw it with Kansas. It's like, what can UCF do to improve? Well, they can't do a lot worse. And we're getting chances and we're getting close, but we can't punch that ball in. And that's the thing that we need to improve on. And I don't know. My gut's telling me that this is the game where it's like things are going to start connecting and clicking. And I know that's wild and it's more of an emotional take, but I just feel we're so close to just getting it right. And if we can get it right here against a huge opponent, and I know UCF's hungry and I know we have nothing to lose. And again, with nothing to lose and everything to gain, why not? Why not now? This could be the defining game of the season. And if we can win this game, I think it will. And I do think we will win this game. I think UCF is going to win the time of possession. I think Cincinnati is going to continue to be penalized. They're going to commit one or more turnovers. And UCF's going to just need to hit 1 or 2 explosive plays for a touchdown. That's the key, for a touchdown. Not a big pass to DJ Black where it's a terrible pass and miracle DJ Black corrals it but falls and he lands on the 12-yard line and we end up kicking a field goal from that pass. We need explosive, comprehensive, complete touchdowns. We get 1 or 2 of those, we slow the game down, we bend and don't break on defense, we're right in this game. We're right in this game until the end. And if we can get Sorsby to commit a turnover and flip the field, or even a pick six or a scoop and score, who knows? We could be in a surplus quick, and we could be up. And, it only takes one mistake. We have nothing to lose. They have everything to lose. So my final score prediction, and I thought about this for a while, and this is one game where I'm using emotion, my gut, and I really believe this UCF team has the talent to do this thing. I think they're going to win this game. I have UCF 31, Cincinnati 24. That's my final score prediction. UCF 31, Cincinnati 24. And this is going to be a huge upset. UCF goes into Cincy and beats the Little Bear Cubs. All right, charge on, Night Nation. We'll talk soon.